Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. And we are also live on Roku. For those of you who are on Roku, you can now watch it from the comfort of your living room. So make sure you check us out. The Outer Realm is fully sponsored by the amazing folks over at Folgers Coffee, who have been a part of our journey since the very beginning. So thank you, Folgers. We appreciate you so very much. Also, big thank you to Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, aka Justin Snicker, who is responsible for our intro and our outro. It's his music you hear, it's his voice that you hear, and we're so grateful for him, comma. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, and basically can be found anywhere that good music can be found. So check him out, Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, you name it. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind the logos and basically anything that has to do with the Outer Realm, with banners, etc. Check him out on Instagram and Facebook. He does a lot of commission pieces and he specializes in horror art and beautiful, beautiful work. So you can basically see what he's got in stock or have something that you would prefer to have that's more up your alley. Anyway, tonight, the Outer Realm welcomes Max Hawthorne to the show for the very first time. He's going to be discussing his book, Monsters and Marine Mysteries. I'm totally into that because I know in the Gray Zone, Joe and I have actually spent a lot of time covering different things of that nature. And it's really fascinating. There's a lot of people who are super interested in it. So I'm anxious to see what he's got hidden away for us. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic show. Bearing in mind, people, we have 7 chat rooms, not 8, because we are on Roku. Roku does not have a chat room. But just kind of think of this big superhighway coming down to one lane. It's kind of like that. So if you want to participate and be in the chat room, YouTube, of course, we have the Outer Realm. We have UFO Paranormal Radio. We have UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials. On Facebook, we've got United Public Radio, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, News on the Flip Side, the Outer Realm, of course, and Canada's Most Haunted. So that's pretty much where you need to be, and we will be keeping up with the guests. So I will try to go back and catch up if I can. Otherwise, just know that I will do the very best to get your comments and questions out. So a little bit easier, and I got my little compadre here with me, but it's going to be a while, I think, before Amelia is back. Hopefully not too much longer. Everybody's getting a little bit healthier over there, and doesn't help with cold season either on top of everything else, but hopefully she'll be back soon. So we sure miss her a lot. It's kind of strange not seeing that bubbly little face on the other side of the screen. So anyway, big hugs and lots of love to Amelia. So keeping our fingers crossed that she'll be here soon. So Max is an American author and screenwriter referred to as the Prince of Paleofiction. He's best known for his Chronos Rising series of sci-fi suspense thrillers, which have gathered both Book of the Year and People's Choice Awards. Wow, he's an Amazon #1 best-selling author of the cryptid research book Monsters and Marine Mysteries, thank you, as well as memoirs of a gym rat, an outrageous expose of the health club industry, and a children's book, I Want a Tyrannosaurus for Christmas. Don't we all? And he actually has a song, A Tyrannosaurus for Christmas, which peaked at #2 in 2021 World Indie Charts. So he's been interviewed pretty much all over the place. I mean, he's got a really long long resume here. He is or was born in Brooklyn and attended school in Philadelphia, where he graduated from University Arts. In addition to being best-selling novelist, he is a singer, songwriter, and avocational paleontologist, cryptid researcher. Man, it goes on and on and on. So I think you guys are really going to dig it. So I see people are slowly chiming in here, and which is fantastic. I love it when you all chime into the chat room. So kind of all make your way over there, and I am going to get the banner up. Here we go. Yay. So of course, we talk about marine mysteries and such monsters. I think we think of the different things like such as Loch Ness Monster. Canada, I think we've got Champ, we've got Ogopogo. A lot of the Great Lakes have these beings. They seem to be all over the place. Oh, hold on. Here's our guest of honor. Bam. Hello.
Oh, you were talking about me?
Here I am.
Guest of honor. She must be confused. Got me mixed up with somebody else,
No, this is all you, man. This is all you. So how are you?
A little on the chubby side, but I get by.
I get by. Okay. Well, getting by is okay. Just
Yeah, I got these old
life a
ladies
little
hitting
bit.
on me at the supermarket and stuff the other day,
Right. Right.
75 years old, trying to make
Oh,
moves
geez.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
hey,
no.
we get more well seasoned with age.
Yeah, I must be pretty seasoned then. A lot of salt and pepper. But
And a
anyway,
little spicy. So,
yes.
well, thanks for coming on. I've
Sure.
been
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I've been really curious about, I was just explaining how a lot of us, I think people in general, when you think about, monsters, we always think like deep sea stuff, the Loch Ness monster, for instance, and we have them like every country or every part of the world, every continent at least seems to have one story of sea monsters and things like that. And then we start getting into the debate as to
Mhm.
what are they? Are they interdimensional? Are they coming through portals? Are they actually left over from the paleo world, shall we say? So, oh, I like that. See, I've got like my Folgers, but I like your stitch better. Oops,
Actually,
sorry, Folgers. I do love Folgers.
this is my little girls. I keep stealing her Stitch mugs to use for
That's
broadcasts and
cute.
stuff. Yeah, but she's either doing homework or getting ready for bed, so hopefully I won't be attacked.
No, that's good.
It would be embarrassing.
Well, it would be when you're fighting over a cup, as long as
Yes.
you're a child. But where do you want to start? I always usually kind of poke around at humble beginnings and what made you decide to become a writer. And I mean, I say singer songwriter, but I find that people who are very artistic
Hmm.
will tend to lean to the arts that way, whether all genres of it. So I'm going to let you take it where you want to go.
Hmm. Um. Well, a lot of people keep calling me a Renaissance man these days and all that.
Right.
I mean, it's some people are like, "Oh, you're a jack of all trades, but master of none," or something like that. But that's not how the saying goes. The saying
Right.
actually goes, "A jack of all trades is a master of none, but is
Mhm.
still better than a master of one."
Right. Right.
And so it's like I took my AP English degree from college, and I gave up film and animation, which was my original degree and all that. And when I
Mhm.
went into writing, I taught myself how to write novels and
Right.
such,
Right.
and built on that. And then I learned how to write screenplays, and poetry came second nature. So then I learned how to write songs, and
Mm.
just one thing after another.
Right.
So
Right.
um, how I first got started in novels. Uh, hmm. Well, I believe that a lot of people, not everyone, but
Mm.
a large percentage of the population would always love to write a book.
Right.
You know, I mean, everybody would love to cement their experiences in life, put them all together like a diary, but more so, or they have an idea for a story, a novel, a romance, whatever it might be.
Mhm.
A lot of people feel that way,
Right.
and a lot of people find when they try and tackle the project, it's very intimidating. I
Mhm.
mean, when we're I don't know if you remember in high school when you got an assignment, you have a 500-word essay due tomorrow, and everybody was like, "Oh,"
I
like,
know. I was always good at writing. I'd pop those babies out like nothing.
but most people were like, "I'm gonna die,
I know.
500 words," you know? And it
Yeah.
was always one person in the class who would try and get away with using like the same adjective like 15, 20 times at a shot to take up space, you know? Like she was
Right.
very, 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 very upset.
I
You
know.
know,
Just
and the
milk
teacher be
that.
like,
Yeah.
principal's office, you know. But
Right.
so I mean, it's really it can be tough. I've written novels that are pushing 200,000 words,
Wow.
you know. And
Yeah.
when I'm like on, I do 2,000 words a day easily. And I'm
Right.
talking 2,000 polished, edited, ready for my editor to tear me a new one words.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
that
you don't
kind of
want to
stuff.
edit your own book because it's just going to keep going because you always find things, oh, I can just maybe tweak this a bit and the book never ends.
Oh, I always love when I get like when a novel comes out and then a month or two later, I get like a letter in the mail from a reader. I got a 2-page handwritten letter once explaining how there was a typo
Oh
on
boy.
page 376, right side, you know,
Right.
third paragraph, whatever, you know, and all this whole
Right.
huge explanation. And I'm like, but you know, it
Yeah.
comes with
Yeah.
the territory.
200,000 words and you find the one typo.
That got past not only me but the editors
Right.
and
Oh
the
yeah, for sure.
typesetters and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
for
But
sure.
I ended up. I mean, my novels are predominantly sci-fi thrillers. Like my
Right.
first novel, Cronus Rising, which you know really, was really a help out of the gate because it turned out to be an award-winning book. Um, is kind of like what they call Jaws meets Jurassic Park. And in
Right.
fact, that's where the hashtag Jaws meets Jurassic Park came from back in 2014 was for Cronus Rising.
Right.
And it's a story about a giant prehistoric marine reptile that has been imprisoned in an island caldera, like a saltwater lake preserved inside a caldera since the
Mm.
Cretaceous, and has escaped and now proceeds to do what any apex predator will do, you know, patrol its new territory, eat, and
Right.
try to mate, reproduce, etc. All this stuff.
Right.
And then, of course,
Right.
it comes into conflict with people that don't want to see whales getting killed or their
No.
friend's boat getting sunk and them getting eaten and
Right.
yada, 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 all this other stuff.
Right.
Um, and it ended up being a whole series. But all of that, like the passion for the sea, the marine life, and the prehistoric life, is all stuff that I experienced growing up. I
Right.
first time I went fishing, I was 5,
Mhm.
and I mean, if I like, you know, I pushed, you got like, you know, there's
Right.
seven
There
foot
we
fish on
go.
my office wall.
Right.
See,
Right.
so
Yeah.
don't you love that sign behind me? It says warning, unruly. Oh, it's reversed
It
because
is.
of
I
the,
was gonna
the
say, I don't know. I
setting.
can't tell what it is.
Ah, I gotta go in and fix that. It says
Yeah.
unruly children will be used as bait.
Oh.
So that was for like my young nieces and nephews when they were younger, troublemakers and stuff like that.
Right.
I still keep it up there. It's funny,
And
but
taking possession of the cup.
yes, exactly. But
Right.
so yeah, and then like so there I had always had that, you know, and I had a million pets as a kid, snakes and lizards and tarantulas and spiders and
Right.
scorpions and you I had alligators when I was a
Right.
kid. You know,
Right.
like most people had dogs, which I had too, but I had alligators also.
Right.
And then I had a dad who was a rock hound, which is somebody who he owned a jewelry store, but he
Right.
had a passion for fossils and minerals. See, so
Right.
he was. I grew up being surrounded by like you know giant prehistoric shark teeth, well, you know, like
Right.
this, or
Yeah.
uh, mammoth bones that looked as big as they came from Godzilla to
I
me.
love it.
You know,
I
yeah,
love
all this.
it.
I mean, it was always
Yes.
something. One
Right.
time, I borrowed one of his megalodon teeth and I snuck off to the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia. And they had used to have a trading post there. And
Oh.
I traded it for a gorgeous ibex horn that I gave my mother for Mother's Day.
Oh, wow. So you learned early, early on. Just get into the
And
stock.
I never told him where his megalodon tooth went until I think I was around 50,
Right.
something like that.
Or
By the
muster up the
way,
courage.
I'd
Yeah.
always meant to tell you, but
Remember when?
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Right.
I had this thing for, you know, dinosaurs and dragons and all this other stuff. And so it all ended up coming together and I started having these ideas for this book literally 25 years ago. I had a magazine and it had this great painting in there of this monster that ended up being the centerpiece, these pliosaurs in my
Right.
novel. I still have the magazine.
Right.
that's put
Wow.
this in motion. And the
Very
idea
cool.
was there, and I would make notes about it and ideas and all this other stuff like that. But I didn't really do much for it for several years. And then I was down, it was around 2003 or something like that. I was down in the Florida Keys at, oh, was it Marathon? I think is the
Mm,
name of the island. And
right.
they had this huge outdoor store there. It's called, I think it's Bass Pro's Outdoor World. And when you
Right.
go in there, one of the centerpieces in the store was this ancient wooden fishing boat from like the 1930s that
Wow.
Hemingway had fished off of,
Right.
Ernest Hemingway. And it's a big boat. I mean, to me, it looked gigantic, 45 feet long, maybe,
Yeah.
dark. The whole hull was wood and everything like that.
Yeah. It sounds beautiful.
And so I went on this boat, and it was the sister ship to the Pilar, which is his boat that's in Cuba.
Right.
And I think that's the one that he hooked up with machine guns during World War II and torpedo tubes and went out
Oh,
looking to
Jesus.
fight
Yes.
U-boats. Yeah,
Right.
he was an adventurous guy.
He
I can
sure
relate.
was.
Yeah, but I'm just going to put a couple 50 calibers on my boat and a torpedo tube, and we're going to go
Yeah.
out and sink a U-boat, or some
Right.
Japanese destroyers or Germans,
Yeah. He didn't mess
battleships.
around, Howard Hughes.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But we actually have a lot in common because I used to do a lot of boxing and
Mm.
the fishing and all this other stuff. So on the boat, I'm like walking around, and I found a fighting chair in the back. That's like what you use for marlin and tuna, the
Yes.
fishing
Yes.
chairs. And I
Yes.
sat in this chair that he used. I was like, wow, this is great.
Admiring.
Hemingway's chair. And then
Right.
I wandered around, and then there was a little step down thing, and they had a writing desk of his on display,
Hmm.
and you could sit at it, and on it was the actual typewriter that he wrote The Old Man and the Sea on.
Right.
The actual typewriter, the one with the giant marlin and the
Yes.
fisherman and all that
Yes.
stuff, survival. And I sat at his desk using his typewriter, and I'm playing
Mm.
around with it and all this stuff. And it was like I heard this little voice in my head, and it said, "You can do this."
Uh-oh.
And I went, "I can do this.
That's right. All right. Let's do it.
I can
Right.
do this. Yes."
Right.
And when I got back to Pennsylvania, away from the land of the ever shining sun, Florida, and all that,
Right.
I got to tell you, the Keys are so bright, much worse than Orlando and stuff. I mean, it took me with sunglasses 2 or 3 days for my eyes with sunglasses on to adapt to the sun down there. It was like the equator.
Wow.
It was incredible.
Wow.
But when I got back,
Amazing.
I started like, in earnest, like really prepping to write this novel. And I bought all these books on writing novels and made
Mm.
myself teach myself classes and, whatever. That's how it all kind of started.
Right.
See? And then it
Right.
became one book, and then everybody wanted the sequel, and the sequel ended up being 3 sequels, and then 4 or 5 and 6. I think there's
Mm.
7 books in the Cronus Rising series now.
God, that's crazy. Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
fantastic. That's fantastic. So you decided to do a nonfiction. I guess, people might say, oh, come on, monsters and
Well,
mysteries. I get. I mean, that's a sort of high strangeness. It's just a different thing altogether. But what made you decide? You just figured you'd go to the flip side of Kronos and just
are you talking about Monsters and Marine Mysteries, the book?
yes,
Well,
yes,
actually, the first book I ever wrote was
right,
nonfiction. That was Memoirs of a Gym Rat. See,
right,
because I
yes,
had been working in the fitness industry to pay the
right,
bills and doing a fitness product I had invented. Believe it or not, I was on QVC at one point with a
right.
fitness product and stuff. And I had this nonfiction book that exposed all of the dirt and filth that goes on in the health club industry behind closed doors.
Wow.
And yeah, and I mean, like a lot of people did not want this book coming out, if you understand what I'm saying.
Oh, of
'Cause a lot of
course.
people don't like roaches don't like when you turn the lights on them or shine a
No,
flashlight on them, etc. And,
exactly,
so
exactly.
I'll tell you, anybody out there who's thinking of joining the gym, I mean, it's that time of year, you
Right.
know, you should read Memoirs of a Gym Rat because it will teach you all the traps that are waiting for you, all the contract stuff that's waiting for you, the shady sales tactics that are waiting for you, and all sorts of other stuff. It's like a survival
Wow.
guide.
I hear
So
that, guys.
yeah. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read it for free.
There you
So
go.
save
Okay.
yourself money on your contract. Don't get roped in for the rest of your life to pay and not go. Yada
Right.
yada yada. Believe me,
Right.
I've seen it all. But
Right.
so back to Memoirs of a Gym Rat, though. So over the course of writing the Cronus Rising series, when you're doing research on marine life,
Mhm.
um, I mean, I've researched everything from the ocean floor to tectonic plates to tidal waves to meteor impacts. I mean, I did it
Wow.
all.
Right.
whales, echolocations, submarines, submarine lingo. I mean, I had to learn so much. It's like
Mhm.
your memory banks were like sucking up information like that.
Right. Right.
And oh, speaking of memory banks, by the way, I have this great thing that I've been doing lately. You know when you get those harassing spam and phishing calls and stuff?
No, I just block them all.
Yeah,
But
but you know
yes,
what I'm talking about. Everybody
I
gets
do.
them.
Oh,
So when
I
I get
do,
them,
believe me, yeah.
yeah, I used to like do all sorts of things and stuff like that, and like have fun with it. Because as a writer, you work from home, you get bored. Now, I don't do that anymore. I do something very simple. I'm like, What's this about?" I'm like, "Wait, hold on," and then I change my Alexa. Watch, computer, fire photon torpedoes.
Aye, aye, Captain. Firing photon torpedoes.
I don't know if you heard that well or not.
Is
Just
it?
the way,
Yeah.
yeah. And then I hang up in their face. See,
Right.
so their ship has been
You've been
destroyed.
torpedoed,
And,
yeah.
yeah, and all
Right.
that. But yeah, so that's and you can do that with your Alexa. You can just change it and
Right.
have her. You can call her whatever you want.
Right,
See,
right.
but anyway, but yeah, so over the course of doing all those books, I of course encountered a lot of cryptid articles and stories and such, and some of them were relative to Cronus Rising. Like you wanted
Right.
to like plant the seeds of like reality or where people think, well, this could actually happen. There's actually evidence. This is arguable. And there
Mm.
have been a lot of sightings of giant prehistoric looking marine reptiles by people. Some go back hundreds of years. Some
Mhm,
go back to World War One
mhm.
and a lot sooner. I mean, I interviewed a guy who just back in 2017 who next to his he was on an ocean liner, a cruise ship working it, and this giant what looked like it had an alligator's head and huge body surfaced next to the ship and was keeping pace with it. And he said just the head, neck, and the shoulders was 100 feet long. I'm sorry, 50 feet long. Let me
Wow.
fix that.
That's
Just the head, neck,
substantial.
and part of the
Yeah.
back. But that's like not even half of it was 50
Right,
feet long. And
right.
it looked like a giant mosasaur. So, I
Mm,
mean, there are sightings of things out there, but I ended up doing all this research and uncovering all this stuff. And
mhm,
as I learned more and more and more, I started meeting more and more people in cryptid circles, cryptid zoology circles, etc. I had some encounters of my own. The first was when I was 19. Then
mhm.
I had some stuff happen when, recently I had something just happen a little over a year ago. It was kind of creepy and scary.
Right.
But, and so as you learn more and more of that, I started talking to more and more people and learning more and more about stuff and studying historical sightings, etc. And as I'm doing that, I started researching stuff myself and realizing some things that were out there were wrong or were
Mm,
outdated, or the information or the solution, like something was obviously a hoax,
mhm.
or
Right.
something was, obviously explainable and nobody seemed to have realized it, etc. Like about
Mm,
Loch Ness.
right.
I've learned so much about that. And on my Monsters and Marine Mysteries Facebook page, for example, it looks like I'm picking on the Loch Ness monster, but it's not. It's just these things pop up, and I look at them, and I'm like, no. And like that flipper photo from, I think it was from the '70s or something like
Right,
that,
right.
you know.
Yeah.
And I looked at it, and then they had the unretouched version, which looks nothing like a flipper, but there
Mhm.
was something there, like this ridge, and I just turned it upside down, and lo and behold, it looks like the flank and the side of a sturgeon, complete with
They're
the
big
dermal
fish too.
ridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what it was. And
Right.
so whoever took that photo, and then I confirmed. I went on another website by a paleontologist, Darren Naish, I think his name is, and
Mhm.
he even said that the original photo was 180 degrees the other way. So I was
Right.
right when I flipped it. See,
Right. Right.
and then
So
you can see. So somebody took that photo,
and
turned it
turned it.
upside down,
And it may
and
not even
then
have been the photographer. It might have been somebody else that says, "Oh, it looks like this."
mhm,
You know what I mean? Like, people do that crap all the time.
and then they made it look like a fin.
Right.
I mean, there's no that was
Yes.
physically altered. See, so that
Right.
to me is just a hoax, in my
Right.
opinion. Okay,
Well, absolutely. But what are your thoughts then on Loch Ness?
well, first of all, Adrian Shine, who is probably one of the most famous researchers
Yes.
out there about it,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
he has publicly stated that he believes that um, very large whales, catfish, and sturgeon sometimes make their way into the loch.
Right.
And I believe that because my research shows that, like, for example, um, I'm a passionate fisherman. And
Right.
I've been many places from swamps to Alaska to Hawaii. I've been all over fishing. Okay.
Right.
And I've seen plenty of lakes where in the spring or something when you have like bait fish spawning,
Yes.
and you'll have tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of small fish in shallow waters, all in a giant mating field, we'll call it. And I've watched channel catfish that weigh 15, 20 pounds
Hmm.
just cruising through there and just like a whale or whale shark eating plankton and just swallowing as much as they can hold
Hmm.
and going on their way. They don't have
Right.
to hunt. They don't have to chase or
Hmm.
expend energy. They just gorge themselves. And these shiners or whatever they are so busy with mating on their minds, they're not even paying attention. And they get swallowed.
Right. Right.
See?
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean,
Right.
when I've looked at some of these sonar hits on Loch Ness from the last X number of years, it seems like no coincidence to me, but they're always mixed in with these an array of smaller sonar readings. And I
Hmm.
consulted a charter captain I fished with, who's been fishing professionally, taking people out for 50 years,
Right.
and sonar and him are like bed mates. And he's
Right.
like, okay, well, that's a huge shoal of smaller fish. He's
Hmm.
pointing it out to me, et cetera. And there's one large reading.
Right.
So I believe Adrian's right that you get these fish, they come in and they time it when it's spawning season for their
Right.
prey. See, so they
Right.
can, it's just like a golden corral buffet.
Right.
You
Well, I
know,
mean,
they just,
he's been at this for what, 50 years?
yeah.
The
But I
guy
mean,
is like pretty much, I mean, lives
yeah,
on the loch. Like he's there
yeah.
constantly.
I mean, I didn't put the Loch Ness monster into Monsters and Marine Mysteries because
Right. It's
to me, it's
overdone.
been, yeah, done to death. Yeah,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
wanted to focus on a lot of other stuff. But I mean, since we're talking about it,
Yes.
even a
Yes.
lot of the historical sightings scream Wells catfish. Like the very first one, I think the oldest one is somebody is supposedly dragged under and drowned by the monster. This is
Mm.
like in the 1600s, maybe, or something like that. And then another guy's pulled under and escapes it. And then a priest stops the monster and says, leave that man alone or whatever. And it backs off. And, this is like the first instance of the monster. Okay.
Right.
But if you ever watched Jeremy Wade's old series, River Monsters,
Yes.
he
Yes.
investigated in Europe. And the Wells catfish was stocked all over Europe, including the UK.
Hmm.
Just so you know, I mean, I have a friend whose son catches 6-footers in
Oh,
England.
they're big. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and they get much bigger than that.
Oh, yeah.
But so, he talked to these women who had been swimming, and something had grabbed them by the calf and pulled them under, and they had bruises on their legs. They were
Hmm.
terrified. But
Right.
that's what Wells catfish do. They lay their eggs around structure, fallen logs, things of that nature there, and then they protect them. Now they don't have
Right.
teeth. They're like a catfish. Most catfish don't have teeth, but they will
Right.
still bite and harass. Any fish protecting its nest will do that.
Right.
Bass will do that. Sunfish will come after a human being, etc. And
Hmm.
these were Wells. He even showed it was Wells catfish. Grabbed the gross leg, whatever, and yanked on it.
Right.
Okay. And if you
Right.
were swimming and something big and invisible bit you on the leg, you would get out of that lake, right?
Yeah. One would
I
think.
mean, like real quick.
Yeah. Fight
Especially
back.
if
Just
you
kick
got
it.
pulled under like the girl
Yeah.
Chrissy in Jaws at first.
Right.
You'd be like, I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
You have to
and
tell
that's
me
the
twice. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
Right.
exact behavior we see in that initial incident.
Right.
Then there are other incidents where, like, a woman saw the monster rolling around, thrashing on the shoreline, and it flopped back into the lake. Wells catfish come out of the water. They
Hmm.
take pigeons. They will leap up out of the water to grab things.
It's
They will come
crazy.
after you practically on dry land.
Guy's
And
crazy.
yeah, but it's true. And then
Wow.
they say the monster had antennas. Antennas are the catfish's whiskers.
Yes.
See,
Yes. Yeah.
there's even one sighting where a guy was looking right at it. He described its mouth, oval shaped, and it was like yay big. Once again, that's a
Big.
Wells catfish's description.
Right.
Okay. And
Right.
then there's another classic sighting where somebody saw it squirming across the road, headed back to the loch and stuff. Okay.
Hmm.
And it started off being 6.5 feet long and then grew over time until it became 30 feet long. See?
But
But
yeah, that's
yeah,
the
but
total. It was
yeah,
this big, and
right. That's like
right.
my dad exaggerating the size of the fish I would catch.
Exactly. It gets bigger as you tell the story.
Yeah,
Of
I had
course.
an 80-pound halibut, and it was like 300
Yeah.
pounds like 5 years
Right.
later. But he was telling people, and I'm like, just let him keep bragging, whatever. It's not me
Yeah.
telling the story. But
Right.
so I mean, so that could have been a catfish, because I've also found catfish where when a lake or big pond will flood from excessive rain,
Right.
and water level rises, they will go into the shallows looking for prey. And when if
Right.
that water recedes to a certain point, then they find themselves stranded. They can even die. So it may have been, I mean, I don't know if it rained that day or the day before. If the
Right.
water levels were up, that'd be interesting to find out. But
Hmm.
it sounds like a Wells catfish, the size 6.5 feet, the
Right.
long neck and small head would be the tail. And then
Right.
they have that little lobe at the back, there, et cetera. He's just looking at the wrong end of it and whatever.
Right.
Yeah, that type of
So,
stuff.
so do you think this is a common factor in a lot of these sea monster sightings? I mean,
Like
Okapoko,
misidentification.
Champ, in the Great Lakes, or because they really are like they're not. Well, I mean, they do have them in the oceans for sure. There have been sightings of things like that look like you know dinosaurs that have washed up on a beach, but
Mhm.
primarily these sightings seem to be in non-saltwater
Like in
lakes.
lakes and stuff. Well, if we're gonna have like big bodies of water,
Yeah,
like Lake Iliamna and stuff like that, I'm convinced that a lot of these places have very large sturgeon in there. And I mean, the European sturgeon can grow to be 20 feet long. That's the size of a big white shark.
that
You know,
that's huge. Yeah,
yes, I
I
mean
mean,
enormous.
northern
And
Canada's got big behemoths like that too. My
mhm,
grandfather spent his whole life trying to catch it, and they called it the monster. But there were parts of the lake that were bottomless. Even Jacques Cousteau went to try to sonar parts of it, and they said we can't. At the time, they didn't have that technology,
well,
so
if
they're
you have
big.
like an isolated lake, it
Yeah,
may be a same species we have today, or it
yeah,
may be an unknown species of sturgeon that's in there. But the
oh,
point
yeah.
is when it breathes,
They're
it
big.
doesn't need air. I mean, this has gills, so I mean, it being seen is a rarity. You know,
Right, right,
I mean, it's not like it
exactly.
has a surface like a plesiosaur or a mosasaur or a whale or
Right,
something like that.
right.
But I believe there are large fish in certain bodies of water large. They may have very large turtles and things like that that may
Mm,
explain some of this stuff. Monster, no, but in Monsters and Marine Mysteries, for example, I know a lake in New Jersey, which will remain unnamed because I intend to
yeah.
go back there and deal with this myself.
I want in.
But yeah, I went there with
Right,
my dad one time,
right.
and I took him on the lake, and it's an electric only lake, which is like 90% of the lakes in New Jersey because they're reservoirs and things like that. So you can only use your trolling motor and putt around quietly. Okay. But, and I found a shad, an American shad, about this big, floating dead on the surface. And it had a 5-inch wide, like, bite taken out of it. That was like a wide oval. Okay. With tooth notches and stuff.
Mm,
And when I researched it, I realized there was only one thing that could have made this bite eventually, which was a giant snakehead. So snakeheads, we have problems with them in a lot of bodies of water here. The northern snakehead is all over the place. It's an invasive species. If you
right.
catch a snakehead, you're supposed to kill it and report it to the authorities.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Like
Right.
in Washington, they're all over the place and
Mm,
all sorts of stuff like that. But I believe that this was too big to be a northern. I think this was a giant snakehead. And I believe that somebody in that area had dumped the contents of his fish tank in this lake. The fish were getting too big. He thought he was doing them a favor by giving them a home, a huge
oh,
lake, etc. And of
right,
course, this fish becomes an apex predator and grows unchecked, may even multiply.
right.
There's warm water influxes to this lake, which would explain how they could survive the winter. And that
Mhm,
wasn't the only thing, though. The other crazy part was, and this goes along with my notion of this guy having a huge tropical fish tank and
mm,
dumping his stuff, is that we were in one part of the lake, and all of a sudden we saw these two twin swirls on the surface, which are indicative of something very large swimming under the surface, maybe a couple feet down. When a large fish moves close to the surface at speed, okay, it'll create a swirl. You'll
mhm,
see it like if a bass is charging up towards the topwater bait, the water will boil as it's coming up. Okay, so there were
mhm,
two of these big swirls about 6 feet apart, and they were moving together. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, I'm like, that must be two giant carp or I don't know what, like that. And we started following them with the boat. But with the
mhm.
electric motor, you can only go like 2 miles an hour or something like that, you know. And I would try and get close to them. And whenever I tried to get close to them, they would accelerate a little bit and increase the distance, then slow down again. And it
Mhm,
was weird because when they made turns, they didn't turn like if this was two fish swimming to this. When they made turns, they didn't go like this.
mhm,
It went like this, like that. Understand? And after a
mhm.
while, my dad goes, what if that's two parts of the same thing,
Right.
same animal?
Right.
And I looked at it and I was like, that's impossible. And then I was like, looked and looked. And the more I thought about it, I realized what I was looking at, because he was right. It was the edges, which they undulate to travel,
Mm.
of a giant freshwater stingray.
I've never heard of a freshwater stingray.
Yes, it's like one of the biggest freshwater fish in the world. They can weigh 700 pounds, some of them have been caught. Okay, yeah.
That's insane.
And
I love
this,
stingrays. I
yeah,
think they're
this
just
thing
beautiful.
was every bit of 6 feet across. Okay,
Wow.
every bit. And people would have these in the same aquariums. They're like from the Amazon or Asia and stuff
Right.
like that, as pets in their tank. Just like the snakeheads, they grow and grow and grow. And
Right.
this thing would have no natural enemies. It would be the biggest thing in any lake pretty much in this country, except for a white sturgeon maybe or something like that,
Wow. Wow.
and
Wow.
it was just swimming along. But I had 12-pound test line, designed to catch little bass and stuff like that. There was no way you're taking on something that, I mean, I've seen films of them breaking shark rods in half.
Hmm.
They're incredibly powerful, but it's in there. I know it's in there. I mean, but the point is it's not a monster. But if you
No,
were swimming and you came face to face with underwater, in your mind, it would be a monster.
it would be a
Okay.
monster. It'd be a little bit unnerving.
Hmm.
Um, Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but in terms of legitimate sea monsters, the oceans are by far our best bet.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
you
So
have,
let's go with that.
okay.
Reports. I mean, you're an avid fisherman. You fished on the oceans,
Mhm.
I'm sure. Any experiences with such beings? Because I mean, the oceans are deep. I mean, they're 95% unexplored, technically speaking.
Let's see. So the weird things I've had happen on the ocean. I mean, if you really want to, you got to be way out
Yeah.
in order to really see the
Right.
good stuff, and you've got to be, in my
Deep sea
opinion,
fishing, basically.
and not just deep sea fishing. You got to be quiet. See, I mean, predators are not stupid. You know,
Right.
like predators are smarter than like herbivores and stuff. It's difference of what you hunt. Are you
Right.
eating grass, or are you eating the thing that eats grass type of stuff?
Hmm.
But
Right.
like if you're on a sailboat, the odds of you encountering something unnerving and unpleasant are much greater than if you're out on a noisy motorboat that's screaming through the water and has
Right.
propellers that can kill animals
Right.
and things of that nature.
Right.
See,
We don't want that.
so there have
Right.
been incidents, for example, where a trimaran, it's in Monsters and Marine Mysteries, was just a couple years ago was attacked by an immense squid, and this squid had, according to the witness, it was hanging on the back of his boat and stopping the boat. It had tentacles as thick as his thigh. Now
Which
I've
is crazy
seen,
because they're not very strong, though, are they? The
well, when you're 100
squid
feet
tentacles.
long, you're pretty strong.
Well,
And the thing
you're
is,
going to get smacked around a little bit for sure. But
but they have
it's
jet
not like
propulsion.
Kraken type strength, is it? Like,
Well,
right?
I don't know. I mean, they're
Right.
tentacles. They have
Yeah.
suckers that have teeth in them that can rip flesh and
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah, you win.
Yeah. But
That's
I
true.
and so his boat, I think, was like 100 or 105 feet long, and it's three narrow holes, but it doesn't
Right.
have a motor. It's a
Right.
sailboat. So to me, I think that this squid, there are certain squid out there that it's all in Monsters and Marine Mysteries that I investigated it, that prey on whales. They eat whales, the real big ones. Okay.
Wow. Wow.
And so, this thing must have thought it was looking at a trio of finback whales or blue whales, and it decided to attack. And it grabbed the rudder, meaning it went for the flukes, and it was holding on and trying to take down its prey. See, and it ended up holding on to a boat that had three hulls together, and it was tearing at and holding on. I think it was on there for like 15 minutes or something like that.
Jesus,
So
that's
eventually,
substantial.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, but
Wow.
and
Wow.
it's you're talking about, like, so that's where you're going to see stuff. I mean, for me personally, like one time I was out shark fishing with some guys. We left out of New York and we were about 20 miles offshore, and we came across a dead sea turtle. It was a loggerhead, and it was upside down,
Mm.
and we stopped because we were looking at it, and we wanted to see if there were sharks tugging at the carcass, because if there were, we were going to stop right there and start fishing.
Right.
That was like your bait.
Right.
Like we would have been home free.
Instabate.
Yes,
Right. Yeah.
this loggerhead was the size of a Volkswagen. It was far larger than the world record. I'm not kidding.
Jesus.
I was
Right.
looking right at it. I didn't know how big loggerheads were then. This
Hmm.
was 20, 25 years ago and
Right.
such. But I mean, its shell, its body from the side was like a yard thick.
My
Thick.
God.
Okay. Now picture a
Wow.
sea turtle. You can understand the size of this thing. I mean, the
Yes,
shell was probably 6, 7 feet long at least,
that's insane.
and
The size of an adult.
yeah, but
Right.
immense. And it
Right.
was so thick and big, and we didn't see any damage on it. So either if it got hit by a ship, it didn't. There was no visible damage. Maybe it had
Right.
just died of old age. I mean, to be that size. But
Yeah.
that was like one thing right there. One time I was close to shore, and I was fishing for Goliath grouper down in Florida, like in Port Charlotte. Now this
Hmm.
is within eye
Florida
shot
has
of.
freaking everything. If it's this
Yes.
obscure, it's in Florida.
Yeah, it does. I
Right.
remember when we went to the went to when I was fishing the Boca ran past one time and went to the dock and to meet the boat, and the dock was like there was no dock. It just kind of like there was this restaurant, and you went down to the beach and you waded into the shallows and climbed in the boat and then went out. Okay,
Right.
but when I pulled in the parking lot, um, which is sand and
Right.
jungle, okay, and
Right.
stuff. And there were all these little lizards, like yay big, like running all over the place. And then all of us, I get out of the car, and this lizard, like as big as a person, just went waddling by, like whoa, 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 and chasing the little ones. And it wasn't
Hmm.
an iguana, some sort of monitor or something like that. But it
Right.
looked like a dinosaur, and it ran just calmly right past me. And I turned to my friend, I'm like, "Did you see that?" And he was,
Right.
like yeah, like what, this type of stuff. But anyway,
Yeah.
so but I was fishing for grouper, and the water there is like Port Charlotte. There's like these old phosphate pits. I mean, mines, or what do they call them? Phosphate docks. I'm sorry, and pilings and stuff. And there's like this 70-foot deep hole there. And I was fishing for grouper, and I had something on the line. It was probably like a 75 or 100-pound grouper. And
Right.
then all of a sudden, something took it, just whoom, like that, and it almost pulled me over the side. And then I got yanked sideways, and I'm holding on for dear life, and then it snapped the rod in half. I mean,
Right.
literally, the rod broke in half, and this is a tuna rod designed for giant tuna.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
and then there was 100 feet of steel line on there that is to protect it from getting bitten through or from the pilings and stuff.
Mm.
That screamed off, and then as soon as it hit the monofilament where it was attached, now this is 400-pound test. So it takes at least 400 pounds of pressure to break it. It snaps it like nothing, like
Right.
nothing. And I'm holding on, trying to stay on the boat. Imagine you're holding on to 400 pounds of sustained pressure, okay?
Right.
And then
Right.
crack like that.
So what's
And
on
then,
the other end is what I'd
yeah.
love to know.
And then the water beside the boat, remember I told you about that boil when a
Yeah.
fish comes like that, was the size of a large hippo, like 13 feet across. The water went like, whoa, like that. And I'm like, and the captain goes, "Well, what the heck was that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. What was that?" He goes, "That must be one of them giant 1,000-pound groupers they see down here that everybody says they see, but nobody ever catches."
Right. Right.
If it
Right.
was, you don't want to be in the water with it because a fish that size could eat a grown man.
Sure.
I mean,
Absolutely.
the mouth would literally be like a yard across.
Yes,
So,
yes. I have to intervene 1 quick minute for Steve White. Steve, sorry, you're asking questions based on last night's show. I think you got in on the wrong stream somehow. I don't know how, but yeah, we're on talking about monsters and marine mysteries tonight with Max Hawthorne. But thank you for stopping by, and I hope you have a great weekend also. Okay, back on track. So, in your opinion, is it possible that we have dinosaur type beings, creatures, animals that could have potentially survived?
like the Cretaceous extinction, etc.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
each chapter in Monsters and Marine Mysteries, the book covers different things, but there's one
Mm.
chapter, for example, on mega squid,
Right.
and the evidence is incredibly strong that they're there, deep
Right.
down and everything. I believe they eat
Wow.
whales. There is a record of one that I investigated where it attacked a destroyer, a naval ship, and damaged it. Okay,
Wow.
so I mean, and some of these squid are estimated to be as much as 175 feet long.
That's
That's
yeah.
not including the attack tentacles that Architeuthis has that shoot out to grab things.
Right.
That's just the head, the mantle, the body, and the short arms, the feeding tentacles.
Wow.
Okay,
That's
that's a
crazy.
That's some serious calamari.
Right.
I interviewed a gentleman named Demetrius who near Sanibel Island, Florida
Hmm.
again. Uh,
They're all in Florida.
him and his friends
Everything's in
saw,
Florida.
saw an octopus. They said was 80 or 90 feet long, and
An
they swore on
octopus.
a stat. Yeah, an octopus. They had a. It's the interviews in there. It's hilarious, but they had a. It was like Demetrius's birthday, and him and his friends went down. I think this is 2013 or 2014,
Mm,
and they took a 55-foot charter boat out to fish,
mm,
and they were a couple miles offshore. I don't have all the exact, obviously the details in front of me and stuff, but a couple miles offshore. And he said whatever they were using for bait, it stunk to high heaven. It was like nasty fish and whatever and stuff like
right.
that. There was a lot of this in the water, and this is obviously what drew this thing to them. Okay,
Right.
as a fisherman, I know you put chum in the water, things come to investigate it.
Right.
They're like,
Yes. Right.
it's like if
They
you walk
knew.
through the house
Yeah.
and you know
Right.
your husband is making this incredible steak
Yeah.
or dinners, and you're like, what is that? You
Yeah.
onto it,
Right.
but so they were standing there fishing and all that, quiet, the boat creaking back and forth and all that, and then all of a sudden the arm of an octopus comes to the surface. Now, when he told me this story, he thought octopuses were all this big. Okay, so he was just telling me like it was nothing. So
Wow.
the part of the arm they saw was 30 feet long. Okay, and at its thickest point was 3 feet thick. Now picture a tentacle, an arm, 30 feet long and 3 feet thick, and that's not all of it. You understand? So it
Right.
came to the surface like this, and it snaked along the surface to their boat, and then it started touching the boat like this. Not like in Nemo, I'm going to touch the butt, that kind
No,
of thing.
yeah, yeah, right, right. This crack and touch. Right.
And he
Okay.
said they were 20 feet from it, looking right down. He described the texture, the color, everything like that. Okay. And they
Wow.
said it wasn't threatening. They weren't afraid. They said it was just curious. And then it pulled away and it snaked back down, went under the water. And he said under the boat, they saw the other tentacles, the shadows of its outline and the body, and then it started to move away. And he said they estimated it was 80 or 90 feet long altogether. Okay.
Wow. So
But I told him, I said,
deep
first off,
sea.
Demetrius, yeah, I was like, octopuses don't get that big that we know of,
I
although there have been
know.
reports. Okay.
Yeah.
I said, number one.
Right.
I said, and number two, it wasn't curious. It was tasting you guys. What do you
Mm,
mean tasting? And I'm like, well, you see, octopi or octopuses, depending on which
mm.
version you like to go with, in the
Tomatoes,
plural,
tomatoes. Yeah.
have
Right.
chemoreceptors in their suction cups, their suckers, and they
Right.
use those like taste buds, so they can taste things, they analyze things, etc. So I believe this cephalopod came up under them, and it thought that based on smell, their vessel might have been a dead whale or a sleeping whale,
Oh,
and it
okay. All
wanted to
right.
taste the hull to see if it was right.
So it came
And
up.
when it tasted fiberglass or metal, whatever the boat was made of, it
Mm,
pulled away and it went on its way. And they
right.
were very lucky that that happened, because if it had, decided this is prey and it went woof and it enveloped the boat, it might have latched onto a fisherman or something and said,
Right.
well, you know what? The rest of this ain't edible, but hey, here's an hors d'oeuvre at least. And
Yes,
and you pulled over.
exactly. No kidding. No
Yeah.
kidding.
But I mean,
No
and
kidding.
I had to really investigate this whole thing because, Sanibel, they have a lot of manatees around there, you know.
Yes.
So a
Yes.
cephalopod wants, animals want easy meals. They want a lot of, in this case, a large predator wants a lot of flesh, etc. And a
Hmm.
manatee is literally like a quarter pounder of cheese. I
Right.
mean, they're 1,000+ pounds of meat and
They're
blubber.
slow.
They're slow. They're
Right.
defenseless.
Yes.
I mean, like, hello.
I
It's
know.
Right.
Right.
And that's why there's like so many reports in Hawaii of 50-foot octopuses that show up when the green turtles are coming ashore to lay their eggs.
Mm,
You got a
right.
600-pound turtle is a nice meal,
Right.
for an
Right.
octopus whose beak can easily crush through that plastron and carapace and get to that juicy,
Right.
juicy innards. I mean, their octopi eat smaller ones, go through crabs and lobsters like they're nothing.
Right.
The beak is made of chitin; it can cut through
They
wire.
cut through anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
much. So I mean, a turtle would be,
Right.
snack.
So, well, it's okay. So basically, I mean, I believe that some, folklore is sometimes based on a sighting somewhere. So you start looking at, the whole Kraken story. It's just sort of like Cthulhu. I don't know. Maybe it's just
Oh,
based on something. Everything seemed much bigger back then. But then again, when the world was a different place, you did have a
mhm,
lot from the paleo world and the dinosaur world that were left over. They were, beings that were there. But can they can they survive the test of time when you're looking at the ice age, when you're looking at, I mean,
mhm.
now it's scary because they can literally splice it and bring it back.
Yes. Well, okay, so let's look at, I mean, I wish I'd known, I could have sent you some images from Monsters or Mysteries and
Well,
stuff,
you
but
actually have like total control of the board. You can screen share anything you want from your end.
really?
It sure can.
Keep in mind,
So
I'm the village idiot here, so you're really asking for trouble.
if you
Uh,
go under where it says present, do you see
wait,
that
hold
in
on.
the soundboard?
Let me find the image first that I would want to show.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's see if I can find my cryptid files.
yeah. So I'm of the mind that anything is possible, and you got a lot of people who get into the whole quantum physics thing as well. Portals, things like that. A lot of people do believe. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? A lot of people do believe that some of these beings can come through portals or ancient, I mean, dimensional beings, interdimensional beings. Not
Hmm.
really that hard if you have an understanding of quantum physics.
Um, it's not my area of expertise, I will
Right,
say
fair enough.
that, but
Okay.
um, I mean, anything is possible. It certainly makes sense that, like, sometimes you see reports like of a tyrannosaurus like dinosaur with a horn on its nose covered with fur in a winter environment. I mean, being
Right,
covered with fur or feathers, whatever it was, would
right,
make
right,
sense. But where did this thing come from in the first place? You know what I mean?
right.
How alone, the animals aren't immortal. So,
No,
right.
exactly.
So if I was going to show something, okay, what would I
Click on present. See at the bottom.
present? Okay.
So present. You can go up and go share screen or put in a video file, anything you want, but go to share
I don't
screen.
have a video file, so I click share
Okay,
screen.
go to share screen,
Okay.
and then it'll go to another like another window in your browser, and you
Right.
can click on that.
It says screen sharing tips, and then
No,
it
no,
says
no.
screen sharing
If
is
you
used
if
for
you
two
click
monitors.
screen share, yeah, it'll go over to are you on Chrome or are you
Or
on
I'm on Firefox. It says share screen, but it has tips above that.
well,
Can you
you
see?
just want to go to your browser and click on whatever window is open.
It says use Chrome if you'd like to share audio with your screen.
I'm on Chrome and I've got like 50 windows open and I can choose any one of them and then it will bring it up. So
Let me.
you can go to where it just says window next to Chrome.
Okay, so here it says allow. I feel so bad for your audience. Allow
Don't worry.
StreamYard to see your screen. Then it says select window or screen.
Okay, so go if
Cryptid
you
book images.
right.
Maybe this is the one right here that I just pulled up. Let's see here.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, that's the
And then
great thing
allow.
about
Click
this is
allow.
it yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Do I click allow?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Now, can you see that?
1 second, bringing her
Oh,
up.
sorry.
There you go. Bam.
Okay. So
There
you
you go.
see this right here. Okay. Now,
Mhm.
this is one where a sea monster sighting took place. This is in the 1800s.
Right.
Okay. From a ship called the Osborne. Okay. And they
Okay.
saw this whole bunch of these spike like things, these black things sticking out of the water that were up to 6 feet tall. Okay.
Right.
So everybody can see that. Okay. Now I'm
Mhm.
going to click stop share to get out of that. Now I got to
Good.
pull up the next image.
Yep, no problem.
Okay. Let me see. I'm not prepared for this, but I'm going to try and make the best of it. Let's see here if I can find. Okay, here we go. You're up next. Okay, so now I got to go back
Yeah,
in
just bring her in.
and I got to do
And I
present,
will I'll pop it
share
up.
screen, and then here we go. Okay, and then allow. Okay,
Mhm.
now this is from the same incident.
Right.
Okay, and this is this huge animal that was seen through a telescope from the ship by witnesses. I
Mhm.
believe it was estimated to be 40 feet long.
Wow.
That's its head, its back, and its flippers,
Right.
which it was swimming along, and then all of a sudden its head and its shoulders and its flippers were out of the water, and its flippers were flailing in the air.
Right.
Okay. Now everybody remembers those spike-like things that preceded this. Okay.
Right. Right.
So I was doing research on mega turtles,
Mhm.
and do I still have that screen up? I think I do.
Yeah, you can put it back up. I'll just, when you get a picture, and I'll bring her up if you want.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay, so stop screen. Okay, now I got to go into what I'm looking for, the other one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry if I'd known I was going to be doing
That's
this.
okay. You could have you can have 5 screens open to bounce around.
Oh.
People
Cool.
come on to entire PowerPoint presentations because it gives you control of the board.
So when in this whole chapter, I was researching mega turtles, monster turtles. Okay.
Right.
In fact, and there's evidence that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. This is one from the 1800s. And I thought this must be a monster turtle from that illustration. That's
Right.
You're seeing its head, its shoulders of its shell, and its flippers. But why
Right.
is it out of the water? And then the notion that people are saying, oh, it's the spikes on a dragon's back. Those black spikes are killer whale fins. See? The killer whales were there, and then they submerged, and
Right.
then this thing erupted out of the water and was flailing like this. And the
Right.
reason, and I can prove that because share screen. Try this one more time. I might
Okay.
eventually get good at this. Let's see here.
There you go.
Wait a minute. Where's that bad boy I had? Dreams time. Okay, I got you. Make sure I got the right one. No, it's not. It's not letting me. That's weird. It's not letting me show it now. It's not giving me that as a choice. Maybe if I close this and this obnoxious image. Let's see here. No. Let's try it again. Present, share screen. Dang it. This is so annoying.
That's when you're trying to prove your point. That's just not cool. Yeah.
I will not be denied. This will.
No.
I will.
You can keep fiddling with it while we keep moving
Let's see
forward.
here. Yes. Okay. Let's see
so-
here. So stop sharing is okay. So what are we seeing right now on the screen?
You're just looking at us.
Okay. Can you see this right now?
Just us. No, I can't say
It's
anything
still
else.
us?
Yeah, there's nothing that's come up.
Dang it. And it's on my screen.
It comes up as a separate screen in the green room, and then I bring it up. So if it's not there, it's not there.
The browser can't access your screen. Try capturing a different screen to see if this continues.
Yeah, so I don't know. No, you can fiddle while we talk.
I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
All right, hold on. Here we go. Okay, there we go.
Now, that is the killer whale today attacking a sea turtle.
Right.
And do you see what's happening there? It's exactly the same as the Osborne image from the telescope. The head, the top of the shell, and the flippers are out of the water. They grab the sea turtle by the haunches, by the hind legs, the tail, and they yank on it. And they pull it, bring it on, eventually pull it under and drown it. Okay.
Right.
So this is what was happening with the Osborne incident, was a giant, much, much larger turtle that was being attacked by a whole pod of killer whales. Hence all the fins, the spikes, the black spikes all went under, and then this thing rears up, etc. And I mean, even a 40-foot turtle could be torn apart by a pod of orcas. I mean, they kill blue whales. See?
Absolutely.
So this was solving that particular mystery. But it also indicates, though, that the idea of mega turtles out there. I mean, I interviewed a guy who actually his widow and then his partner, who filmed a 38-foot turtle off of the coast of Nova Scotia. And that Super 8 footage is still available today. And when I enhance frames from it, you see the turtle's head and neck coming up out of the water and it turning and looking at the camera. So, I mean, they're out there. So giant turtles do exist. Giant octopi apparently do exist. Giant squids definitely exist. There is evidence of massive sharks out there. I just did a YouTube documentary that people can go. Am I allowed to tell my YouTube channel?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Let me make sure I know the name of it because they keep changing these things on me.
Right.
It is called Max Hawthorne's Book Trailers and Videos. So people go on there or just go to my Monsters and Marine Mysteries Facebook group. It was shared on there. But
yeah.
Back in July, a couple friends of mine from Briar Island there encountered a whale carcass that they managed to photograph at sea while it was still fresh, and then on land also. And I even had him go back and do measurements and all this stuff. And this was a subadult humpback, about 30 feet long, and it had shark bites all over it,
Wow.
ranging from this big to this big to this big, all different sizes. But there were several bites on the whale that were a yard or more across.
Whoa.
Now, understand, I mean, like, that's the size of the shark from Jaws 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Like, literally, I extrapolated it. And
Not
using
quite megalodon size, but pretty big.
you're talking a fish at least 32 feet long that
Right.
weighs like 8 or 10 tons. I
Jesus.
mean, very large white shark.
It's scary to think that there's something that big out there.
Yep.
Can,
And it's not the first time. I mean,
Right.
I did a whole chapter on these showing evidence of fish ranging from 26 feet in length to 42 feet long.
Right.
I mean, like Simon Pierce, the marine biologist in 2017, he
Mhm.
photographed a 40-foot whale shark, which is the size of a Greyhound bus in and of itself.
But it's, you expect that out of a whale.
Right.
Even if it's a whale shark, you
whale shark,
expect that out of
But
something
it
that
has
big.
a 4-foot bite scar on its
Oh,
left rear flank in the caudal
wow.
fin region.
That's something even
Okay.
bigger.
And the bite is 4 feet across and even has tooth notches in the scarring, which means that this didn't happen 20 years ago when this whale shark was small. This probably happened in the last 12 to 18 months, and I guess
That's crazy.
something like that.
Right.
So, there are, and there's been a lot of theories that white sharks occasionally suffer from gigantism. See, where, and many animals do.
Right.
I mean, you've seen toads that normally grow 4 inches that grow 8 inches
Right.
in length, double the size, 8 times the weight. Okay.
Right.
I personally, as a kid, used to collect these little beetles. I forget the species. They were carnivorous little monsters like that, nasty things. And it's in the book. And one day I flipped over a rock and I found one that was 2.5 times normal size.
That's
I mean,
insane.
impossibly
Yeah.
big,
Right.
And so it's like, I mean, fish experience what's called indeterminate growth to begin with. Just like reptiles do. They never stop growing.
Right.
So if you have something that for some reason experiences gigantism, it's going to grow to an enormous size. Is it going to reproduce and pass on those genes? Probably not. Because let's be realistic. I mean, when sharks mate, for example, like white sharks, most sharks, the male shark is usually a little smaller than the female.
Right.
So if she's 18 feet long, he might be 15 or 16 feet long. Okay?
Right.
And he'll come up and he'll bite her on the
Right.
neck, by
Right.
the gill region, try and pin her, force her down to the seafloor, etc., so they can mate, spawn,
Right.
whatever you want to call it. Okay, it leaves
Right.
wounds, scars, etc. They heal fast, and that's the nature of the beast. If you're a 40-foot male white shark and you approach an 18-foot female, she ain't sticking around.
No,
She's going to
exactly.
run for her life,
Right.
And
Yeah.
if you're a 38-foot female shark and a 15-foot male comes up and tries getting rough
Yeah.
with you, you're going to eat him.
It's exactly.
You know what I mean? Oh,
Exactly.
dinner is served. I
The
got
food
DoorDash.
chain. Right.
There you go. It
Right.
comes to you. So,
Right.
and I covered all this in the video, but it's very compelling. I mean, when you see the size of these bites on this thing, so it looks like we do have at least occasionally enormous sharks out there. Now, is it, like I said, white sharks with gigantism? Most
Right.
likely. If it is
Right.
not, then the other option, if it's some holdover, would be this species.
A megalodon.
No, this is not megalodon.
Oh, no, megalodon. No.
No, this
Okay.
is the shark that came right before megalodon. Its immediate ancestor, called Ototus chubutensis, and
Wow.
I'll show you. Let me see. I can make this out. So a megalodon's teeth are not shaped the same as
Okay.
as chubutensis. They tend to be. So here, this is a 6-inch megalodon replica. Obviously, it's white. I don't
Right.
have a fresh megalodon tooth that I just pulled out.
Right.
Okay. Now, if you look at the tooth structure, now granted, this is probably a UR upper right 2, and this is probably an upper right 3, but they're close to each other. The shape, is still drastically different. If you look at the shape difference, this is a triangle, like a white shark, and this is different. This has this chisel-like center,
Yeah.
see, that's kind of thick, like
Right.
that. If you look at it head on, and then it has these flanges here, the cusps that come down like this. They're designed to do two different things. This is designed to pierce flesh like a white shark and tear away at it, and rip out mouths. And this is designed like a nutcracker to fit between ribs like this on each
Right.
side until it gets to this point, and then pop, 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 pop like a nutcracker, like that
Right.
type of thing. See? So if we were having a prehistoric holdover, it would most likely be Chubutensis, which did grow to 40 feet in length. So
Right.
it's
Right.
remotely possible. My bet, honestly, though, is white sharks with gigantism. Several
Right.
marine biologists have already stated that's what they think is going on out there. So still,
Well, so
a 40-foot shark is still a 40-foot shark.
it's still a 40-foot shark. It's still pretty terrifying. I'm going to do a really quick station ID. Thank you, Tamara, for the remind. Usually Amelia does this, so I'm kind of like winging it. So we're going to do a quick station ID, and we're going to do a quick sponsor ID. So for those of you just tuning in, like Chris, hey Chris, you are listening to The Outer Realm here on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3, 107.7 FM from New Orleans. And we are also live on Roku, people. Yes, we are. So make sure, we're covering all your bases. We got you guys. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, we're fully sponsored by the amazing folks over at Folgers Coffee, who have literally been a part of our journey since the very beginning. So thank you, Folgers. We appreciate you so very much. Also, big thank you to the man who's responsible for the intro and outro, the award-winning Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, aka Justin Snicker. And you can find his music on Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon. Also, Mr. C. McGinnis, the artist behind all the artwork at the Outer Realm. So we thank you very much. We are sitting here talking with Max Hawthorne, and we're discussing monsters, marine mysteries, and all kinds of stuff. We're just sort of venturing and bopping around, and it's not what you think. I think, you think of a big shark, that'd be pretty monstrous. I'm still like totally taken back with the stingray. I think that's just fabulous to think that they're in a lake and they're that big. But what I'd like to know, let's just veer away a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about marine mysteries. Do you remember a few years ago on the Discovery Channel talked about merpeople, and they went really deep diving. They went down and they caught some interesting images. I mean, it was all over the place. And of course, now the internet's littered with them. And it's kind of like, come on, man. Like, you gotta catch us, give us a break. What are your thoughts on that? Like on the Discovery and everything surfacing. Is it possible?
If you recall, that special was a little misleading.
Yeah.
It started the whole mockumentary term and trend and all that.
Right.
I was watching it and I was eating it up. I mean, like, I believe those cave drawings were real.
Right.
And that
Right.
skull and all this stuff. And then at the end, you see this fine print, so this has been a
Reenactment.
recreation of what might, et cetera, and all that. So
I was more curious about what they captured on camera. Just
No,
like
that
a
was-
split.
that was CGI.
Was it CGI?
Yeah, like the thing in the net, the kid comes up and so as soon as I saw that, I was like,
nothing like that. No, they caught part of what looked like a hand
sitting on
with
a rock
spear.
and it jumps in the water.
No. The Discovery video that they captured, again, deep sea with, I guess, the rovers. It looked like part of a webbed hand, and it had part of a spear. It was really nothing extravagant. It was just very, very, very fast, and they had to freeze it.
I hate to say it, but I think it was all created for the show. Just like when they had their Megalodon, the Shark Lives
Yes,
mockumentary.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then they did the same thing. They had all these actors that were supposed to be scientists. They weren't.
Right.
And they had these fake carcasses and all this other stuff like that.
This thing made headlines.
Yeah.
Like Discovery Channel made headlines from that one little clip.
Yeah, they make headlines, but then, a lot of people started getting upset about it because you go from real science to more like, science fiction, that kind of stuff.
Is it though? Is it like we've explored maybe 95% of our oceans?
No, 5% of the oceans.
Only 5%. Sorry, yeah. There's 95 unexplored is what I meant to say, and it's so
that's just
deep.
the bottom. That's just the bottom that we've explored. don't forget you got an average of 11,000 feet of water
There
above
we
that.
go.
So,
There we
oh, I'm
go.
not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying is that the
Curiosity.
evidence out there has pretty much all been manufactured.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say. Okay,
Right.
so I mean, believe me, I'd love for that to be the case. I mean, there've been so many sightings, for example, of what sound like mosasaurs.
Right.
I mean, literally scores of them. A lot around New Zealand and places like that. People talking
Just
about their boat
washing up.
was attacked by them.
Oh,
One guy on a jet ski said this thing just missed him. It like lunged up, like breached out of the water like a whale and crashed down right near him and his friends. That's what
wow.
they said. There's tons of it. I mean, a few months ago, remember they showed these like family of crocodiles swimming off the coast of the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
now I
Yeah.
look at
That was
that,
weird.
and if it's not a hoax, okay, and I mean, there are a lot of people that put a lot of money into hoaxing people these days, but if it's not a hoax, crocodiles don't travel in family groups.
Mm-hmm.
At least wise, no crocodile species we're aware of, nor do they enjoy being in cold water,
No, that's
which
true.
the North Atlantic is.
That's
Even
right.
then,
Right.
41-degree temperatures or whatever it was is not comfortable. I mean,
Right.
you and I would be dead in 15 minutes or something like
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Okay. And then
Right.
if the film is right, it shows like two adults and then a small one that moves from one to the other, swimming next to it or something like that. It looks like a family group. So if it's not a hoax, then you got to say, well, what is it? Is there some sort of crocodile species like marine crocs used to exist that were adapted to the ocean? They had,
Well, there was some pretty big
yeah,
variation of
yeah.
crocodile that existed, right?
Could they be mosasaurs? Couldn't they? I mean,
Yeah.
I have no idea. The footage is from so far away. I
Right.
have stills from it and stuff like that. I spoke to a couple paleontologists and they said, that's incredible. And I said, what is it? They said, I don't want to even venture a guess. But several said that is incredible.
Do you think it's because, academia, first of all, when you're looking, archaeologists, it's the same in the field of archaeology. It's like, no, we're not going down that road. This is something
Mm.
that's considered, let's say giants, for example. Nope. We're not, that's not a thing. Meanwhile, Smithsonian's like just ditching them in the furnace, But is it the same thing in the world of paleontology? It's just like, okay, yeah, we have our thoughts, but we're not going to go there because it takes away the credibility. Like, is it that sort of thing?
Well, I think that number one, I know a lot of paleontologists. I've written a
Right.
formal paper on how plesiosaurs swam, believe
Right.
it or not. Okay,
Yeah.
which ruffled a lot of feathers. A layman like myself, how dare he solve the mystery of plesiosaur locomotion? He's not one of us.
Right.
We must stop him at all costs.
That's
Oh my
right.
God!
Right.
But it's like I have put out a lot of paleo theories of my own, and one of them, for example, like I don't know if you remember this a few years back, but there was this stuff going around that they were saying like T-Rex was a passionate lover. Do you
Oh,
remember that?
Jesus, I've not heard that.
Yes, he was a romantic lover
That's
and
a
a very
shark on
passionate.
land.
I swear to God, look it up. T-Rex. If you Google it right now, T-Rex was a sensitive lover.
Oh my
That was
goodness.
one of the headlines and stuff like that. And they
All
were
right.
basing this on the fact that they had foramina, these pores in their upper lips and a little bit on the lower,
Right.
which are they're really pressure sensors, and they work in the water. Okay,
Mhm.
that's like crocodiles have them, alligators have them. If you take an alligator and you put it in pitch black darkness, and it's sitting there, and you drop one drop of water, like on the other side of a tank, it'll turn right to it because it can feel it with those foramina, those pressure sensors in the water.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so they were theorizing that it had these sensitive lips and all this stuff, and they were like nuzzling, getting all romantic and all this stuff. That's why I started jokingly calling them the cads or the Cretaceous and stuff like
Right.
that.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
the Don Juans or the something, I forget what it was, but anyway. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, well, that's actually interesting that they have foramina. And then I started digging more, and then I started looking at all the theropods, going way back, even the Coelophysis, the Triassic and stuff like that. And you see they all have the same thing, these pressure sensors on their face, mainly the upper jaw, up
Mm.
like this, and a little bit on the lower. Okay.
Right.
Nothing lower than that, though, except for Spinosaurus, which, as we know now, Spinosaurus was almost entirely aquatic. It was like a
Mm.
crocodile. It spent most of its time in the water, and it ate fish. It was a
Right.
piscivore.
Right.
So it's got them all over its whole face, basically, which it
Right.
needs them because it's looking underwater for fish, and once we go to strike,
Right.
wherever it's got to go.
Right.
But it's the only one. The rest of them have them mostly here and a little bit here. And then I thought it through, and then I said, why would they have that? They're not eating fish for the most part. There's one or two species that I think that do, but I mean, like Tyrannosaurus Rex, for example, is not a fish eater. So why does it have that?
Mhm.
And then I realized what it was. When we look at extant lions and tigers, for example, okay, they have those big whiskers.
Right.
Tigers, which are loners, have much larger ones, but they all these big whiskers. Now, if you have a cat, those whiskers are very sensitive.
That's right.
Walruses use them. They call them vibrissae. They can sense
Mm.
clams and mollusks through the mud, even underwater.
Right.
Okay, so these whiskers, they function like foramina. They can sense pressure changes, touch, things of that nature. So when a lion or tiger drinks from the water, its whiskers are touching or even immersed in the water. When you
Mhm.
see lions drinking, they're usually grouped together and they're all looking like this.
Right.
Why do they do that?
Well, they're sensing.
But
Yeah.
why are they all watching the water and they're sensing at the same time? Why
Right.
are they doing that? I'm asking, what do you think?
Oh, why? Because they don't want something to come up and like big croc come and grab them.
Exactly. That's
Right.
exactly it.
Yeah.
Crocodilomorphs have been
Yeah.
around since the Triassic.
Right.
Every theropod dinosaur has to drink water.
Right.
All animals do. You drink water
Right.
or you die.
Right.
Okay. So the problem now is when you go to drink water, you have to stick your face in the water. And actually, since they probably drank like the cassowary and things like that, that means they take a gulp of it, they have to raise their head and it flows down their throat.
Right.
See? So if you watch like these big birds, they wade up like, to like, I don't know, where their calves are, let's say. So they're going into the water a little bit already. And then they lower their body on an angle like this and they scoop up water. So
Right.
Tyrannosaurus Rex, for example, or Gorgosaurus or any of these guys, Allosaurus, would have to do the same thing, which means they have to now take the chance of putting their face in the water and worrying about getting grabbed by an enormous prehistoric crocodile, Sarcosuchus, Dinosuchus, whatever it might be. Okay. Even if you're the king of dinosaurs, you get grabbed by a croc as big as you, pulled off balance, off your feet in the water, you're dinner. And crocodiles often travel in groups.
Right.
You see them, they'll tear something to pieces, all of them, death rolls.
Right. You get into a frenzy. Yeah.
So, and I found it very interesting that a lot of T-Rex fossils, which are incomplete, are found in what was once riverine environments.
Right.
See? So the question is, were they getting taken by crocs, carcass partially ripped apart, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Okay. But all these theropods have the same facial features. You don't find it in herbivores like Triceratops. Like that. These guys function by numbers. So if one of them gets pulled in by a croc, like wildebeest, they don't care. They got 1,000 more. See?
Right.
Predators are much fewer in number. So they have to be able to drink and not get killed. Hence, they developed this system. Because why would they have foramina that are good in the water? They have to put their face in the water in order for it to sense. If they're not eating fish, that means they want to know something's coming at them so they can pull back and not become lunch themselves. See?
Right.
So my point of this is I told all this to a well-known UK paleontologist, okay? And he said, he asked me if I was, how did he put it? Doing a wind-up. Okay.
What is a wind up exactly?
I had to ask another UK paleontologist I know. He's like, oh, that's a term means like, you're pulling my leg. Are you joking?
Oh, I see.
And I'm like, no, I'm dead serious.
Right.
And all the evidence backs it up. But because it's me, the avocational paleontologist who does these things in their spare time,
Yeah.
they
You're
don't
not really
want to play it,
serious.
Yeah. But but I mean, that's the nature of the beast. And this same guy, for example, I was talking to him about plesiosaur locomotion and explaining that the idea that plesiosaurs would use their, some people believe that plesiosaurs of those four flippers would use their rear flippers just to steer.
Right.
And I thought that was preposterous. I mean, let's be realistic. If you have four flippers and they're all powerful, huge muscles designed for strength and endurance, you're not going to send two of them back to direct traffic, for steering. If you look at a battleship or any ocean liner, the rudders are tiny to control the distance. And when you watch, so I was explaining when sea turtles swim, those rear flippers are used more like rudders.
Right.
And I showed him footage of a leatherback, and he goes, yeah, but the rear flippers are just as big. I said, no, it's the angle. Look when he turns sideways, and then you see the front flippers are 3 times the size.
Right.
Then I had to show him footage of sea turtles where they were diving, and they took their rear flippers and put them flat like diving planes,
Hmm.
while the propulsion comes from the
Right.
big ones. And then he had to finally say, okay, I see what you're saying, but the same person, when talking about sea snakes, for example, was criticizing one of my novels where I had my marine reptiles were getting some of the oxygen that they absorb through their skin,
Right.
like sea snakes do. Like sea
Right.
snakes get either 20 or 30% of their oxygen through their skin. Okay.
Right.
And because he was saying, oh, you marine reptiles couldn't absorb oxygen through their skin. I said, well, we don't know that. I mean, anything's possible. Sea snakes get 20 or 30% of their oxygen per the marine biologist to study them. And he said, I'm going to try and quote this. He said, well, that's what they say, but I don't believe it.
That doesn't make it not so. Because
I'm like, wait a
it's
minute. So
personal
the
opinion.
professionals that do this for a living, scientists with doctorates, are
right.
studying sea snakes and have determined through their testing methods that sea snakes absorb oxygen through their skin. But you, the paleontologist who's never even seen a sea snake, most likely, you don't believe it.
Right.
Well, then that's very reassuring. I feel so much better about telling you my theories
Yeah.
now.
It's really tough, because it makes it difficult for, and again, I think just academia in general, it's like you have your good old boys club, and you come in from the outside, and you have fresh ideas and fresh, perception is perception, but
Mhm.
just because you don't agree with it doesn't mean it's not so. And now with all the discoveries that are happening, like I'll just use archaeology because there's so much, with LiDAR, everything coming out. They're finding so many other locations, and they're getting underwater. Or archaeology has become huge. Like they're finding all kinds of stuff under the waves. So why not? Why
Mhm.
why why
So,
not with different beings,
so Chris
creatures?
is absolutely right. He said here a falcon will pull its wings and feathers close for a dive, etc.
Yeah,
And that's the same type of thing that we're talking about. When sea
right,
turtles, they get the majority of their propulsion, almost all of it, from those big front flippers with their extended
right.
range of motion, etc. And the
Yeah.
rear flippers are used for nest excavation for the females, but also as rudders for either species.
Hmm.
When they're doing a straight, like accelerating in a straight line, they tuck those in, those rear
Right.
flippers, because otherwise it's just throwing things out of whack and reducing, streamlining and that type of stuff. See, so you have to take these things into account. But yeah, I mean that whole oh, he's not one of us stuff and all, that's just like not wanting to give credit where it's due
Yeah,
and
of course.
slowing the absorption of knowledge and new ideas. Many
Right.
people out there that just come up with stuff that sometimes when you're too close to the problem, you
Hmm.
can't see it. The whole forest for the trees thing, etc.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So it's like if you spend all your time with dusty bones
Hmm.
lurking like smog on his treasure with all your fossils and
Right.
stuff like that, you got to get out in the real world.
But they're still finding, new bones, for example.
Yes.
So you find something, you're going to say, no, it's not a thing. Like you have to have a degree of open mind, even though you are, you're scientifically
Mhm.
looking at this stuff. It's like I watched a documentary, for example, yesterday. It was just on mummies that they found in Peru. One of my other shows, Joe and I talked extensively about it, and it's a Netflix documentary right now. But what I found interesting was the people who found it were not the mainstream government
Mhm.
archaeologists. They were still archaeologists. They were still explorers. They found these things. They did everything appropriately. They turned all of this in, and they're very obscure. They're just, some people like, oh, they look like, hybrid reptilians, grays, and then you have the logical, archaeologists say, well, we don't know that it wasn't an emulation where they created like this to emulate something of the ancient people, like there's a lot to factor in with any discovery, I guess is where I'm trying to go with it. But
Ow!
sometimes governments, you know, just will not acknowledge it because it's so dang different.
Ugh.
Oh my god! Oh my gosh! Speaking of
So this
paleontology, what the
this
heck?
side this Virginia ham with hair just grabbed my leg because he wants attention and everything.
No,
It's like a sheep with fangs. This is what I got to deal with, people.
that's
Okay,
enough.
this is Olaf. Say hi, Olaf. Olaf is upset because he just got scolded.
Stop it.
Ugh.
That's just funny. I was gonna, yeah. Speaking of paleontology, look at the size of this guy. So,
It's actually my daughter's cat. See that? It's not that big.
oh, it's
Ow!
not that big. It just looks like it's its own breed or something. It's
Yes,
beautiful though.
yes. That
Beautiful.
really hurt, buddy. We're gonna have a conversation later. He
He
sank
wanted
his
his airtime.
claws into my freaking thigh because he wasn't
Oh
getting
my!
played with and stuff. He probably has a mouse. He has like these toy stuffed mice he brings me, and I
It's on
throw
your
them.
lap.
Yeah, and I throw them. We play fetch, and all
Right.
this.
It's like, I'm ready to play. Let's go. I don't care what you're doing.
I got
We have a
hair in my
lot of
mouth
guests
now.
bring on their pets because pets are just like right in there. So, but
It wasn't intentional. I just
no.
had to get him off my leg and everything. That's why I went like, ow, ow, like that.
What's that? Olaf is my new best friend. I love him. I know.
Yeah, you love him until he decides to sharpen his freaking. Oh. Yeah, I the other day I literally called him. I was like, "Come here, you Virginia ham with hair." And my wife was like, "Why'd you call him that?" I said, "What?" She said, "A Virginia ham." I said, "Because that's what he looks like, a big giant Virginia ham with hair."
Right.
You know,
Big
but
fur ball.
they actually normally sleep on my desk when I write my books and stuff.
Right.
But this one, you better behave, or I'm throwing you out. But anyway, that really hurt. Ooh, coolest cat ever. Yes. Let me tell you, he's big now. Okay. We have two of them. The older cat, who's only like four and a half, is Mace. He's gorgeous. I mean, like pink nose, gorgeous blue eyes, but he's not in here at the moment.
Right.
And when we got Olaf, Mace needed a companion. Olaf was this tiny little thing. And at first he was terrified of Mace and puffing himself out all his hair out and standing on his toes and hissing, trying to look scary. And Mace was like a perfect parent. He squatted down like the Sphinx. He put his head down. He made himself as small as possible to be unintimidating. Okay.
Right.
In a couple of days, they were as thick as thieves. So then Mace became the dad. So at one point, like Olaf started stalking Mace and they would play wrestle. Mace would have to exercise control because of the size difference. He was 5 times the weight. So at one point I'm walking through the great room and I see Mace standing there like this, chest up like that, like kind of sitting there. And I see Olaf stalking him and he comes up and he runs and he jumps at Mace like this, like, and I literally, it's in slow motion. He was like flying at this. And then Mace just stood there and he hit him in the chest like Superman taking a bullet, went like poof, and he bounced right off and fell on the ground. And Mace looked down and he's like, really? Is that it? Like that. It was just
the best you got, cat. Yeah.
But they're awesome. I love them. They're great
yeah.
companions and all that. And the purring is like the best, like white noise you could get.
Right. Yeah. Animals rock. If you don't like animals, there's something wrong with you.
That's
just
true.
saying.
Yeah.
But we're going back.
Yes. Before I get eaten over here sitting here.
Yeah. I think how much do governments hinder scientists, archaeologists, paleontologists, on a need to know basis? We don't all need to know.
I think the paleontology's part isn't as big of a factor. I think a lot of times, you'll see, like every time there's a discovery, it's always the biggest predator of all time. Have you noticed that? Yeah, and all that. Right. And that's the Godzillization, as they call it.
It's usually on somebody's farm.
Yeah, I've been told they do that to get the maximum funding.
Right.
For the dig, and then later, a year or two later, the truth comes out. Oh, it's really only this big and this type of stuff. That's what I've been told. But I mean, a lot of times, amateur people do a lot of the work and they don't get credit. That happens also. So
I have friends who own one of the largest and probably most amazing Knights Templar hoards the world's ever seen.
The most amazing what?
Knights Templar hoards that the world has ever seen. Oh. And because they were not archaeologists, people just looked at it and go, But it's the most unbelievable. It's got it's probably got 150, 200 pieces in it. Wow. Hidden from the world and acquired over a course of 10 years. One of the most unbelievable discoveries ever. And you've got academia saying, no. What is wrong with you people? So I understand what you're saying. It's the layman
Hmm.
who come in and find these incredible finds, and you do everything right,
Hmm.
and it's like there's no acknowledgement or
Or
very
worse, or
little.
do they even try and take credit for your discovery?
Well, that's a big one
That
right
that
there.
happens too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
So,
big one. That's a big,
but
especially if it's a species that's never been seen before, because then you
mhm.
get to name it after the guy who found it, right?
I love inventing species for my books, like the Cronus Rising
Right.
series. I actually, now you've all, yeah, everybody watching the show has seen Jurassic World or Jurassic Park. You've seen the
Sure.
raptors
Yeah.
in there.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So me, when I had this island with a caldera lake in it where my sea monsters were hiding for 66 million years and stuff like that, there was also some jungle in there too.
Right.
And so for the story, because eventually there was an adventure took place in Diablo Caldera there,
Right.
I had raptors, but they only had a little bit of land. So I had it so they evolved so they could run on water,
Right.
like literally, like a basilisk lizard. So
Right.
imagine raptors like you see in Jurassic Park or Jurassic World that can run on the surface of the water at 50 miles an
Mm,
hour with
right.
specially adapted feet, scales that let them do
That
that.
would be frightening because you have
Yeah,
like
terrifying.
absolutely no way to get away
You,
from
you get in the boat, you
them.
think you're safe, and
I
oh
know.
God, here they come, and then boom, 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 boom. See,
I know.
so so I was able to come up with scientific names for them. I
Right.
get I name, like when I invent creatures for my novels, like my pliosaurs are called Chronosaurus imperator. Now, Chronosaurus is a known species, but
Right.
imperator is not. I'm sorry, it's a known genus, but
Right.
imperator is not a known species. So
Right.
basically means like a ruler of the god of time reptiles, which is a really
Mhm.
cool name if you think about it.
Right.
See, and so
Right.
like my raptors were called like basically like Messiah lizards or something like that because they could run on
Right.
water, like Jesus walking on water, that type of stuff.
Right.
See,
Right. Which
so
which brings me to my next question.
yes.
There's these, security camera videos coming up. We're getting away from the marine thing. But there's like freaking like little dinosaur things just running around. Like one of them was caught on a security camera running
Mhm.
across the driveway.
I haven't seen it, so I'd love to see what you're talking
Oh,
about.
it's
But
on YouTube. People started sending it to me. I was like, uh,
well,
I have no
I
explanation.
gotta look. I want to see this. I mean, there are
Yeah,
some
look it
large
up. Look up like
birds.
raptor or dinosaur. It looked very small. It,
Hmm.
it, it runs like a raptor, and it went across, up along a parked car. But it was a security camera that captured this thing.
Well,
So,
I'm not gonna do
so
it right this second. I will look at this later because when
no,
I
for
see it,
sure. It was
yeah.
crazy. It's like again, I chalk it up as, maybe military splicing and dicing, putting together their own species. Chris says academia is keeping stuff from us. If you don't fit the narrative of the timeline of history, you are silenced. Sad but true. I agree. I agree. It goes back to that. It's on a need to know basis, and apparently most of the world does not need to know.
Mm.
So I don't know.
Remember, I told you about the giant octopus with Demetrius?
Yes.
Well, he told me when they got back to shore, the first thing they did was they called it in. And
Right.
Captain Picard, sir,
There we go.
beam me a beer. Will you beam me a beer directly to my office? Um,
Right.
but he told me, I don't know, he wasn't sure if they spoke to the Coast Guard or the harbor master, but they
Right.
called it in to report this immense octopus. And they
Hmm.
had gone to the library and pulled out books to check out tentacles of all different cephalopods to make sure what they saw was an octopus, and it was per
Right.
the stuff they pulled up. But
Right.
and the person they spoke to, he goes, "Oh yeah, we know all about it. It's been here for a couple days already," and that was it.
Like it's no big deal. I
Yeah,
guess.
I mean, this is a carnivorous animal big enough to eat a humpback whale,
Right.
but
Right.
it's
It's no
been here
big
for a
deal.
few days, whatever.
Do you think they're just
Okay.
downplaying it, or they're just like, yeah, sure, whatever?
I don't know, but he said, that's
Yeah.
what the guy said. It'd been here for like, I think he said 3 days ago or something like that. Like
Right.
it's shown up.
Yeah, that's
And
that's insane.
yeah, I mean, okay. I
So
mean, that's
you did some fishing up in Alaska. Alaska's kind of the northern Florida. It's triangles, UFOs, it's
it.
got Bigfoot, it's got water monsters, it's got like I don't know.
Well, first off, like Alaska is gorgeous country and
Mhm.
I love to visit it. I would not want to live there.
A little cold. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, like the one rental we had, like she was like, yeah, it was like a log home. She goes, you see that top railing on the second floor? And she's like, yeah, like last winter it was like -40 for 2 weeks straight. I'm like, -40? She goes, we left. When we came back, the snow was up to that second railing.
Oh, good.
It was like 18 feet of snow or something like that. She
Great.
said we had
Yeah.
to tunnel through it, make a
Wow.
tunnel to get to the front door.
Right.
Okay. I'm like, but I mean, me, like, I'm an idiot. I got out of the car and started filming taking pictures of a moose that was grazing on the side of the road.
I love that.
The moose took a look at
I'm
me.
a northern girl. I'm used to seeing moose.
When the ears went down like this, I went, uh-oh. And before it started trotting towards me, I was already hauling, you know what, back.
Yeah.
I was like, if these guys lock that door, somebody's going to die. If it's not me, it will be. But, you know,
Yeah.
so learn my lesson. Do not approach a moose, you know, in the wild.
No.
Ever again.
No.
Okay. But what was your question? Because you were talking about it last.
I said you've done a lot of fishing up there, and there is a big folklore with the
Cadborosaurus.
indigenous people about there being a big water serpent of some sort.
Is this Caddy, the Cadborosaurus, that type of thing?
I have no clue. There's so many. I can't keep track of which country or which state has which.
I don't know. There was one video from like 2009 that I looked at, and the people are saying, is this Cadborosaurus or something like that? And what it is looks to me like some northern bottlenose whales, like several of them moving together and stuff. It's very telltale because at one point the males, they get this square head like this melon, like a sperm whale,
Right.
you know, and you see the square head breach the surface, and you see the blowhole go like that.
Right.
It's definitely a bottlenose whale. Now, does that mean there couldn't be something out there? I think that there are quite possibly some of those gigantic squid are there. I mean, like ridiculously large squid, because there was like this one thing I looked at recently. It was like this sonar hit that they had that they thought might have been like a 200-foot plesiosaur or something like that, you know. And I think what they were reading was the body of an immense squid, and the neck was the tentacles trailing behind it. See? So, which would make sense. I mean, cold water gigantism is a known thing.
Right.
And an animal like that would have plenty to eat there. I mean, there's all sorts of whales.
It's a like a smorgasbord. I have photos I'm going to actually send you. Somebody sent me copies of, not copies, but links to a couple of different photos. Pretty compelling. Looks like a dang water dragon. Not even kidding. Like the head and like just most craziest thing I've ever seen. I'm going to send you those. I'll have to dig them up though. I don't have them ready. And then when for the other show that I do with Joe Montaldo, it's called The Gray Zone Uncensored. Sorry guys, you can only get it on Roku. I was researching for, different sea anomalies, that sort of thing. And I came across this article from the 1970s of a family who they were just fishing. There's no black and white picture. And they captured what looked like a sea monster of sorts. And it was taken on a regular film camera. And the guy just brought it in, dropped it into the local newspaper, and he goes, they didn't want to talk about it. He just went, there you go. And you publish it. I don't want anything else to do with it. I just don't think it's right to not share it. So this was on an old photogram, remember, in the 70s, right? It's not like all digitized like it is now. And they posted this thing, and I kept a photo of it, and I will dig it up and I will send it to you. Because it's in the archives from the show, but I will go pull it and send it to you, because I would be really curious on both of these instances as to what your opinion is, because you're the paleo guy, logical guy. I want to know what the logical guy has to say about these.
The logical guy was just making sure the cat was happy and everything. He's chilling out now. I don't need another. I don't mean another pair of pants.
Wound, no.
Pair of pants ruined. But yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying in terms of like people not wanting people to know stuff. Because, for example, like whenever people have tried to get like Bigfoot DNA analyzed,
Right.
potential Bigfoot DNA,
Yeah.
they've
Yeah.
always run into problems. And I saw like David Paulides, who's like a real expert on Bigfoot these days. He's written those 411 missing 411
Yes. Yes.
books.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And he was saying how like they tried like all sorts of places and nobody would do the testing for them.
Oh.
And then yeah, like they refused,
Hmm.
you know, or like so then what happened was they tricked this place, one lab, and they didn't say
Mm.
what it was.
Right.
And then he said the owner called them up all say like, "My God, do you know what you've got here? This and that." He goes, "This is amazing," and everything. And he said, "Well, what are we looking at?" And he said, "Well," he said they had 3 samples of Bigfoot DNA.
Mm.
I think he said one they put out pancakes with syrup, and they had glued rough sandpaper to the bottom of the plate, and the
Right.
syrup and the pancakes
So
were on
they made
top.
him fight for it, essentially.
No, it was licking the plate.
I was like,
And so they got lingual
okay.
DNA, like for the
Brilliant.
tongue on there,
Brilliant. Yeah.
blood, tissue samples.
Sure.
Another was something that got in a dumpster, like a woman had called it in that a Bigfoot was like raiding her dumpster. And when it had leaned forward, it had ripped out a bunch of hair follicles that actually had the tissue on them.
Yeah.
And then the
Right.
third one, I think, was the guy said a Sasquatch ripped somebody's downspout off the side of their house and bit it. Like it must have been very angry. And it
Very
was
angry. Not happy. Right.
so
Okay.
they sent in all 3 of these, and they all got the same reading. Now I saw this video, and I'm doing this by memory, but
Okay.
I think I'm pretty accurate on this. And he said that the test showed that all 3 traced a lineage back 15,000 years ago to a human female for half of the DNA parentage, and the other half was an unknown animal, unknown thing.
That is insane, but not unheard of. There's a case of that in Europe.
So what that means is the same poor woman was impregnated by something. Now we know Bigfoots are very large, very
Yeah.
strong, very muscular,
Yeah.
very whatever, which means that the male must have been much larger in order to pass on those genes
Right.
to this poor woman, who I'm
Right.
sure was not doing this willingly. But anyway,
Right.
that was
Right.
15,000 years ago. But the point is so the guy tells him all this stuff, and he's like, "Where did you get this?" And he said, "It's potential Bigfoot DNA." And then the guy flipped out and refused to give him the results and all this stuff. And he had to sue him, take him to court to get the lab work, which I
Wow,
believe
that's
they
crazy.
actually got the lab work. I mean, the
Right.
results and
That
stuff like
that see it goes
that.
right there. It's just no,
Yeah,
it's
bought him
not.
tooth and nail. And if they know ahead of time, they won't even talk to you. You know,
Right.
it's like they've been told or whatever, get out. It's not like you're crazy because anybody can test something and say it is or
Right.
it's unknown or whatever.
But
But
it's
it's like,
becoming a little more common now. I mean,
mhm.
in some states, it's not even legal, to kill them. That's that. So they're definitely it's being taken a bit more seriously. Okay, what do you think about alien bases under the sea?
Under the sea. Oh wait, I am not allowed to do that on here.
I know, right? We're just gonna break out a song, both of us. My daughter grew up watching that thing over
Um,
and over and over.
I haven't honestly read a lot about it. A few things. I believe those are called USOs or something.
Yeah.
But
Underwater submersible
yeah,
objects. Yeah,
it would not surprise me if the I don't want to say the true rulers of this planet, but if there are an advanced extraterrestrials that are there.
I think
Um,
it's military as well. Sorry, I think you have a blend of both.
mhm. The When I was doing Monsters and Marine Mysteries, one of my favorite interviews I got to do, my 2 favorites are, let me think about this, Rodney Ross, the
Right.
gentleman I'm about to talk about,
Hmm.
and hold on, I can't, and Earl Stoziger.
Okay.
Earl was the one who saw the 38-foot turtle with his friend,
Right.
and they filmed it. It was super
Right.
in 1969,
Right.
and all that. And I got all the details from him. So much stuff that was missing or whatever. And Rodney Ross told an incredible story. He is the sole survivor of the people from 1976 who were attacked by a 60-foot sea creature. And I don't mean 60 feet just long, a massive 60-foot sea creature with like a 15-foot wide set of jaws that
Right.
tried to attack their boats, okay, by Sable Island.
Right. Sable. Oh,
And
that's not. It's crazy out there.
yes, and he said that, and he told me the whole story. And I mean, it's all in the book. I'm not going to remember all the details, but
Right.
I mean, he was a kid then,
Right.
young teenager working on his dad's boat,
Right.
and it was like this thing showed up. I think it was right after July 4th, the bicentennial. I think it
Right.
was the 5th, the 7th, and the 9th. It launched attacks on fishermen's boats,
Wow.
and it kept changing its tactics. It was learning like and the first guy it went after, it chased his boat for like I don't know, miles. He had to go into the shallows to get away from it. Okay,
Right.
and when Rodney and they laughed, everybody laughed at him, said he was full of it, making up
Right.
stories. 2 days later, Rodney and his dad get attacked by the same thing,
Okay, that's crazy.
and they're out there and they hear this whistling sound, like he said, it was like wind going through like the rigging on a sailboat, and they saw this thing like a couple of feet like wide and tall sticking
Right.
up out of the water, and it was moving around way behind them. They were anchored up and they were fishing and they were catching all the fish, and this thing
Right.
showed up and the fishing just stopped. All the fish, like, it died, no fish.
Right.
Okay, and this thing was moving around, and they thought at first it was an ocean sunfish and that it was this big fin they have sticking up, but as it got closer and closer they realized it was like a fleshy thing with a big eye, or two eyes, I think it had on the top of it. Okay. And there's like drawings, all the stuff is all in the book. And this thing was like and then turned, and the eye turned, and it was looking right at him.
Right.
He's in the back of the boat. He was like, "Oh shit," like that. And
That's
then it started coming at him, straight at him. He was by the transom, and he's like, "Dad," like that. And the father ran up to start the boat. And then you see the thing coming up and up and up and up. It was like a pyramid. It got bigger and bigger and bigger until by the time his dad gunned it, the thing was about to inhale the back of the boat and Rodney at the same time.
that's insane.
Fangs. He said the mouth could have taken the whole transom inside its jaws. It was that big.
Yeah.
And
That's
they managed to get away from it. Like, they had a huge anchor line out, like 600 feet or how knows. So they rushed forward to a dive. He said it nicked the back of the boat actually when it struck.
that's
And
crazy.
so then they were up there, and then they stayed up there. They were looking around. They didn't see it. They gradually let themselves drift back, so they were taut with the
Right.
anchor line. And they're
Right.
standing. He said for like an hour. He's like, Dad, what was that?" And he's like,
yeah.
"I have no idea." And then a few minutes later, they started hearing the sound again. It was approaching, and they said, well, they weren't trying their luck a third time. They pulled up anchor. Were getting out of Dodge. They encountered the guy from 2 days ago that they laughed at, and they were like, do you know what we just saw?" And the guy was like, "I'm pretty sure I know what you just saw." He's like, "Wait for me, I'm coming with you." So they
That's
all ran
crazy.
for it. And then
Yeah,
2 days
that's crazy.
later, it attacked another boat. This time, it tried being sneakier. It came right up, and instead of going at it from the back, it tried grabbing him from the back of the thing. And then after that, it disappeared. But the point is like, so then this was all in all the papers and stuff. And the guy said a guy in a suit showed up at their house, like some man in black type, we'll call him. Okay.
Right. Right. Right.
And he had an artist with him. And they described the thing, and he said he drew it perfectly. Exactly. And they said, "Oh, it'll be in the papers, this and that." But it wasn't. What happened was they started calling it, the locals were calling it the Southside Sea Monster. The name in the paper got changed to the Cape Sable Serpent or something like that, which is not what they were
Wow.
calling it. And the drawing that looked like this huge, like, cyclops like thing coming up, or it sort of looked like a mixture between like a monkfish and a mud skipper or something like that, like, but mutated. He said it looked sickly, like it was like warped or mutated or something like that. Okay, and what ended up in the paper looked like a green version of like a Chinese dragon. It looked nothing at all like what they described. No idea where that drawing even came from. Okay, and up until my book came out a couple years ago, that's the only supposed drawing of this thing that's been out there. Okay, that's why I've been trying to correct everything for this sighting and stuff. But they
Right.
took this,
Right.
they did this drawing, and they didn't, they didn't use it. They just walked away, and they never heard from him
Right.
again, and that was the end of it. You know,
That's
so
insanity. That's all I'm going to say. But it's a great way to top off at the end of the show as well. So because we're really a couple of minutes away. So tell everybody how to find your books, how to find you, promote yourself, promote.
promote. Okay, let's see.
Yeah. Go crazy.
Go to maxhawthorne.com. You can see my name right there. Okay, so just put a www in front of it. That'll take you to my official site. when you go on the site, there's a free books page, for example. You can get a lot of free excerpts and downloads. Help yourself. All the books are listed on there, descriptions, synopsis, etc. There's even a paleo gallery if you want to, I promote artists that do paleo paintings and stuff, so you can check out all their stuff as well. If you want to find me on Facebook, look for the group Monsters and Marine Mysteries. Pretty easy to find. And I'm on Facebook myself. I don't usually accept friend requests because I suffer from an antisocial personality disorder. That's not really true, but I have my daughter's pics on there, so I'm just like. But if you look up Facebook.com and look for Real Max Hawthorne, because there's a lot of impersonators out there, so Real Max
Right.
Hawthorne on
Get
Facebook.
the real deal.
Exactly.
Right.
You want the real thing. Nothing like the
Right.
real thing,
Yeah.
baby. But you can
Sure.
certainly follow me, public posts, all that good
Right.
stuff like that.
Right,
And I'm
right.
happy to hear from readers at any time.
Okay. Well, wow. I mean, thank you for coming on. It was a lot of fun. And, I sort of have to, maybe tweak the description to the logical, logical, reasoning behind some of these sightings, which I love because I don't think anybody's ever done it. I'll be honest, not on this show. And it was really fascinating because like I said, I've learned that, holy crap, there's some pretty big natural predators out there that could easily be getting mistaken for a
Well,
lot of these sightings.
mhm.
But I'm still going to send you a couple of photographs because
I am dying to see them.
I
And
need to know what you think.
I will give you I hold nothing back.
Okay.
If I think something's real, I will say it. If I
Right.
think something's a tree stump on the
You'll
bottom of Loch
say
Ness,
it.
I'm going to say it.
It's the dang tree stump. Okay, well, I want to know if it's
Yeah.
a floating tree stump. No, seriously, they're very interesting photos, especially the one from the 70s, because you just can't fudge it. Like you can't fudge a negative. But what were they actually seeing? It made headlines back then. It was a really big deal. And this newer one has just been like I think it was last year.
Hmm.
So it's very, very recent. And I would be curious, really curious, because the thing looks like a wyvern almost, like the head of it. I'm going, yes, they exist. Woo!
I will give it my professional opinion,
Okay.
and I will even send it to a marine biologist I know. If I don't know what it is,
Okay.
he may too.
I want to know because I want to seek it out. I want it.
Absolutely. You have my word.
All right, darling. Thank you.
So thank you. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. You're very welcome. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Good
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Well, we've come to the end of, again, another fantastic segment. God, he was just such, as Mark Eddy would say, an insightful researcher, and he's just a lot of fun to listen to. Really, really knowledgeable. So, big thank you to Max Hawthorne. Big thank you to everybody in the chat room who has been tuning in and partaking in the show. Here we go. Yes, Chris, you're always late. You can just subscribe and it'll tell you when we go live. Just saying. But it's always nice to see you in chat. And have a good weekend also, Tamara. So big thank you to Folgers Coffee. Big thank you to Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, Justin Snicker. Big thank you to Steve McGinnis. Wherever you're watching, please like, subscribe, follow. Just show us some love. We try really hard to bring you guys the best of the best. And we really appreciate you guys tuning in. So next week, Wednesday night, guys, we welcome back Dan Baldwin and George Sewell. And they're going to be discussing pendulum dowsing. They have a book on the topic, and they really come up with some amazing stuff. They were been on the show before under another topic, and they have mentioned this, and it sounds fascinating. Thursday night, we welcome the return of Brian Allen, who's going to be discussing his book, The Book of Secrets. And let me tell you something, I have been delving in this, and it's bloody heck, it's amazing. So tune in and have a good weekend. You all behave, and we'll see you next week. Good night.